The morning sun streamed through the windows of Atlanta Memorial Hospital as Jasmine Taylor hurried down the hallway of the rehabilitation wing. Her colorful scrubs and bright smile brought warmth to the otherwise sterile environment. As a physical therapist for the past 5 years, she had helped countless patients recover and rebuild their strength, but today would be different in ways she couldn't imagine. Jasmine checked her schedule on the tablet she carried. Her first patient of the day was a new admission, Marcus Bennett, age 32, recovering from a spinal cord injury after a car accident 3 months ago. She knocked gently on the door of room 415 before entering. "Good morning, Mr. Bennett," she said cheerfully, but stopped in her tracks when she saw him. Unlike many new patients who often appeared defeated or withdrawn, Marcus sat in his wheelchair by the window, typing away on a laptop with determined focus. He looked up at her with warm brown eyes and a gentle smile that made her heart skip a beat. "Please call me Marcus," he said, closing his laptop. "And you must be the physical therapist they've been telling me about, the one with the magic hands who can make anyone walk again." Jasmine laughed, immediately drawn to his positive energy. "I don't know about magic, but I do put in the work. I'm Jasmine Taylor, and I'll be working with you 3 times a week." As she began her initial assessment, Jasmine learned that Marcus was a software engineer who had been working from home since his accident. He spoke about his work with passion, explaining complex coding problems in simple terms that made her laugh. What struck her most was how he talked about his injury, not as an end, but as a new challenge to overcome. "I won't lie," Marcus said as she helped him onto the exercise mat. "Some days are harder than others, but I refuse to let this define me. I've got too much living left to do." The first session went by quickly. Jasmine was impressed by Marcus's determination and his ability to maintain his sense of humor, even when struggling with certain exercises. She found herself looking forward to their next session more than she probably should. Over the next few weeks, their therapy sessions became the highlight of both their days. Marcus would share funny stories about his coding disasters, and Jasmine would tell them about her family's Sunday dinner traditions. They discovered they both loved old sci-fi movies and had the same terrible taste in reality TV shows. One day, while helping Marcus strengthen his upper body muscles, Jasmine noticed him watching her with an intensity that made her cheeks warm. "Is something wrong?" she asked, adjusting his position on the parallel bars. "Not at all," Marcus replied, his voice soft. "I was just thinking how different this place feels when you're here. Everyone told me rehabilitation would be the hardest part, but you make it feel possible." Jasmine felt her professional boundaries starting to blur. She had always been careful to maintain a proper distance with her patients, but something about Marcus was different. He saw her, not just as a therapist, but as a person. His eyes held no pity when she mentioned being raised by a single mother, only admiration for her strength. He valued her opinions and challenged her thinking in ways that made her grow. But hospital rules were clear: no dating patients. Jasmine tried to keep things professional, even as their conversations grew deeper and more personal. She noticed how her colleagues would smile knowingly when they saw her heading to room 415, but she insisted to herself that she was just dedicated to her patient's recovery. Everything changed one rainy Thursday afternoon. Marcus had made significant progress, and it was his last day of intensive therapy. As Jasmine helped him gather his belongings, he handed her a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" she asked, her heart racing. "My discharge papers," Marcus said with a grin, "which means I'm officially not your patient anymore. And that coffee invitation I've been wanting to extend for weeks, I can finally ask now. What do you say, Jasmine? Would you like to get coffee with me tomorrow? Just two people who enjoy each other's company, no therapy required." Jasmine looked at the paper, then at Marcus's hopeful face. In his eyes, she saw possibilities she had never dared to dream of before. With a smile that lit up her whole face, she gave him the answer that would change both their lives forever. "Yes," she said simply. "I would love to." The small coffee shop on the corner of Pine Street buzzed with morning energy as Jasmine sat nervously checking her watch. She had arrived 15 minutes early for her coffee date with Marcus, her former patient. Her heart jumped every time the door chimed, and finally, right on time, Marcus wheeled himself through the entrance. He looked different outside the hospital, more relaxed in his dark blue sweater and jeans. His smile, when he spotted her, lit up his entire face. "I was worried you might change your mind," he said as he approached her table. I almost did, Jasmine admitted honestly. Not because I didn't want to come, but because. She paused, searching for the right words. Because I'm in a wheelchair. Marcus finished for her, his voice gentle rather than accusatory. No, Jasmine shook her head firmly. Because I've never felt this way about someone before, and it scares me a little. Their conversation flowed easily as they shared stories about their lives. Marcus told her about growing up in a family that always pushed him to excel, leading him to start coding when he was just 12 years old. Jasmine shared memories of her mother working 2 jobs to put her through college, teaching her the value of hard work and determination. As weeks passed, the coffee dates turned into dinner outings, movie nights, and long conversations that stretched into the early hours of the morning. But Marcus carried a weight on his shoulders that he couldn't ignore any longer. One evening, as they sat in his apartment after watching their favorite sci-fi movie, he turned to face her with serious eyes. Jasmine, we need to talk about something. Her heart dropped. These words usually meant something bad was coming. What is it? I see how people look at us when we're out together, Marcus said quietly. I see them wondering why someone as beautiful and capable as you would choose to be with someone in a wheelchair. Sometimes I wonder the same thing. Jasmine felt tears forming in her eyes, but her voice was strong. Do you know what I see when I look at you, Marcus? I see the man who makes me laugh until my sides hurt. I see the person who remembers exactly how I like my coffee and sends me funny memes when I'm having a bad day. I see someone who understands me better than anyone ever has. Marcus reached for her hand, his fingers trembling slightly. But this won't be easy, Jasmine. There will be challenges. Things I can't do. And things you can do that others can't, she interrupted. You can code entire programs in your head. You understand complex problems in ways that amaze me. You have the kindest heart of anyone I've ever met. She moved closer to him, placing her other hand over their joined ones. Life isn't easy for anyone, Marcus. But that's why we have each other. To help carry the weight when things get hard. Tears glistened in Marcus's eyes. I don't want to be a burden to you. You're not a burden, Jasmine said firmly. You're a gift, and if anyone has a problem with us being together, that's their issue to deal with, not ours. Marcus pulled her closer, his voice thick with emotion. How did I get so lucky to find you? I'm the lucky one, Jasmine whispered back, because I found someone who sees me for exactly who I am, just like I see you. That evening marked a turning point in their relationship. Marcus began to let go of his fears about holding Jasmine back, and she showed him every day that their love was stronger than any obstacle they might face. When they went out together now, they no longer noticed the curious glances from strangers. Instead, they focused on the joy they found in each other's company, in their shared jokes, their dreams for the future, and the deep understanding that had grown between them. As Marcus watched Jasmine laugh at one of his terrible puns later that night, he realized something important. Love didn't see limitations, it saw possibilities. And with Jasmine by his side, anything was possible. The aroma of traditional Sunday cooking filled the air in Jasmine's mother's small but cozy home. Marie Taylor stirred a pot of her famous gumbo while listening to her daughter talk about Marcus. It had been 6 months since they started dating, and today was the day Jasmine would finally bring him to meet her family. Mom, please don't make this a big deal, Jasmine said, helping to set the table. Marcus is nervous enough about meeting everyone. Mary put down her spoon and turned to face her daughter. Baby, I just want to make sure you know what you're getting into. Taking care of someone with a disability isn't easy. I'm not taking care of him, Mom. I'm dating him, Jasmine replied firmly. Marcus is independent, successful, and the most amazing man I've ever met. The doorbell rang, and Jasmine's younger brother Kevin answered it. Marcus wheeled himself in, looking sharp in a button-down shirt and holding a bouquet of flowers for Marie. Jasmine's heart warmed at how much effort he had put into making a good impression. The dinner started well enough. Marcus charmed Kevin with his knowledge of basketball statistics, and Marie couldn't help but smile at his genuine compliments about her cooking. But then Jasmine's Aunt Sarah arrived late, and things took an uncomfortable turn. So, Marcus, Aunt Sarah said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, what kind of future can you provide for our Jasmine? She works so hard, you know. The table fell silent. Marcus straightened in his wheelchair, his voice calm but firm. I'm a senior software engineer at Tech Solutions. I can provide a very comfortable life for both of us, though that's not why Jasmine is with me." Before anyone could respond, Marie surprisingly came to his defense. "Sarah, that's enough. I've raised my daughter to judge people by their character, not their circumstances." The following weekend, it was time for Jasmine to meet Marcus's family, and the contrast couldn't have been more striking. Their driver pulled up to a massive estate in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. Jasmine's hands shook as she straightened her dress. "You didn't tell me you lived in a mansion," she whispered to Marcus. "I don't. This is my parents' house," he replied quietly. "I wanted you to know me, not my family's money." Inside, they were greeted by Marcus's mother, Victoria Bennett, a tall woman dressed in designer clothes who barely concealed her scrutiny of Jasmine. His father, Richard Bennett, was warmer but clearly reserved. "So, Miss Taylor," Victoria said during dinner, served by their household staff. "Marcus tells us you're a physical therapist. Is that how you met our son?" "Yes, Mrs. Bennett. I was Marcus's therapist, but we didn't start dating until after his discharge," Jasmine explained, trying to keep her voice steady. "How convenient," Victoria remarked coldly. "And I suppose you had no idea about our family's position in society." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "Mother, that's enough. Jasmine has never cared about our money. She didn't even know about it until tonight." "Darling, I'm just looking out for you," Victoria said. "You're vulnerable in your condition, and there are people who might take advantage." "My condition?" Marcus interrupted. "The same condition that Jasmine helped me overcome, the one she sees past every single day. I'm not vulnerable, Mother. I'm in love." Jasmine reached for Marcus's hand under the table, squeezing it gently. Richard cleared his throat and finally spoke up. "Victoria, I think we should trust our son's judgment. Miss Taylor seems like a lovely young woman." The tension remained thick throughout dessert. As they prepared to leave, Victoria pulled Jasmine aside. "I hope you understand. I must protect my son." Jasmine looked straight into Victoria's eyes. "With all due respect, Mrs. Bennett, so must I. I protect his heart, his dreams, and his right to make his own choices. Your son is the strongest person I know, and I love him for who he is, not what he has." On the drive home, Marcus apologized repeatedly for his mother's behavior, but Jasmine just smiled and kissed his cheek. "Our families might not understand yet," she said softly, "but they will, because what we have is real, and real love has a way of changing people's minds." Spring had arrived at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, painting the world in bright colors. 1 year had passed since Marcus and Jasmine first met, and Marcus had spent weeks planning this special day. He had chosen this place carefully. It was where they had their second date, where Jasmine had first held his hand without hesitation. "Are you sure you don't want me to push?" Jasmine asked as they made their way along the garden path. Marcus had insisted on wheeling himself today, despite the slightly uneven ground. "I got this," he said with a mysterious smile. "Besides, you should enjoy the flowers. The cherry blossoms are beautiful today." They reached the Japanese garden section, where a small wooden bridge arched over a peaceful koi pond. Marcus had arranged everything in advance. The garden staff had cleared the area, and his friend Tom was hidden nearby with a camera. "Remember this spot?" Marcus asked, stopping near the bridge. "This is where you told me you didn't see my wheelchair anymore. You just saw me." Jasmine smiled at the memory. "I meant it then, and I mean it now. When I look at you, I see the man who sends me good morning texts every day, who learns to cook my favorite meals even though it's harder from the chair, who makes me laugh until I cry." Marcus took a deep breath. His hands were shaking slightly as he reached into his jacket pocket. "Jasmine, this past year has taught me something important. Love isn't about what you can or cannot do. It's about who you choose to be with, through all of life's challenges." He pulled out a small velvet box, and Jasmine's eyes widened. Her hands flew to her mouth as Marcus positioned his wheelchair to face her directly. "When I had my accident, I thought my life was over. I thought no one would want to share their future with someone in a wheelchair. But then you walked into my hospital room, and everything changed. You didn't just help me heal my body, you helped me believe in love again." Tears started rolling down Jasmine's cheeks as Marcus opened the box, revealing a beautiful diamond ring that sparkled in the afternoon sun. "My disability doesn't define me, and our love isn't defined by it either. You've shown me that every single day." A small crowd had gathered at a distance, watching the scene unfold. Marcus's hands were steady now as he held up the ring. I may not be able to get down on one knee, but I can promise you my whole heart. I can promise to love you, support your dreams, and build a beautiful life together. He looked up at her, his eyes shining with love and hope. Jasmine Marie Taylor, will you marry me? For a moment, Jasmine couldn't speak. She looked at the man before her, strong, loving, and more than she had ever dreamed of finding. Then she did something that surprised everyone watching. She knelt down in front of his wheelchair, bringing herself to his eye level. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, 1,000 times yes. Marcus's hands trembled with joy as he slipped the ring onto her finger. The small crowd burst into applause, and Tom emerged from his hiding spot, capturing the moment with his camera. Jasmine leaned forward and kissed Marcus, not caring who was watching. When they finally pulled apart, Marcus had another surprise. Turn around, he said softly. Jasmine turned to see their families walking toward them. Both of them. Her mother was crying happy tears, and even Marcus's mother, Victoria, had a genuine smile on her face. Over the past months, both families had slowly come to understand and accept their love. We all wanted to be here, Mary said, hugging her daughter, because love like yours deserves to be celebrated. Victoria stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, hugged Jasmine too. Welcome to the family, she said quietly. Thank you for loving my son so completely. As their families gathered around them with congratulations and hugs, Marcus and Jasmine couldn't stop smiling. They had overcome every obstacle placed in their path, and now they were ready to begin their next chapter together. I love you, Jasmine whispered to Marcus as she sat on the arm of his wheelchair, her rein catching the sunlight. I love you more, he replied, pulling her closer. And this is just the beginning. The wedding planning started simple enough, with Jasmine and Marcus sitting at their kitchen table making lists. They wanted a small, intimate ceremony that would be comfortable for everyone, especially Marcus. But as weeks passed, things became more complicated. Darling, you simply cannot have the wedding at that little garden venue, Victoria Bennett said during one of their planning meetings. She sat in their apartment, flipping through a thick portfolio of expensive wedding locations. The Bennett name demands something more substantial. Jasmine watched as Marcus rubbed his temples, clearly stressed. Mother, we want something simple and accessible. Not every venue can accommodate. Which is why I've already spoken to the Grand Atlanta Hotel, Victoria interrupted. They're willing to modify everything for your needs, and they have space for 500 guests. 500? Jasmine nearly choked on her coffee. Mrs. Bennett, we were thinking of inviting maybe 50 people. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Nonsense. Your father's business associates alone make up 200 guests, Marcus. And then there are the charity board members, the family friends. Later that night, after Victoria left, Jasmine found Marcus in his home office, staring at his computer screen. But instead of his usual work, he was looking at what appeared to be legal documents. Is everything okay? She asked, placing her hands on his shoulders. You've been quiet all evening. Marcus quickly minimized the window. Just some work stuff, he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm sorry about my mother today. You know how she gets. Hey, Jasmine said, wheeling his chair around to face her. This is our wedding, not your mother's social event. We can have it exactly how we want it. But the pressure continued to mount. Every day brought new suggestions, demands, and complications. Victoria insisted on hiring the most expensive wedding planner in Atlanta. Marcus's father sent over a list of important guests that couldn't be left out. Even the simple task of choosing flowers turned into a production when Victoria brought in 3 different high-end florists for a presentation. Jasmine noticed Marcus taking more private phone calls, stepping out of rooms to speak in hushed tones. Sometimes she caught him having intense discussions with men in suits who looked like lawyers. When she asked about it, he would smile and change the subject. One afternoon, while trying on wedding dresses with her mother and best friend Lisa, Jasmine couldn't hold back her concerns anymore. Something's going on with Marcus, she confided. He's been so secretive lately. And these fancy wedding plans, it's like I barely recognize our simple dream anymore. Mary Taylor took her daughter's hand. Have you talked to him about it? I tried, but he keeps saying everything's fine. Just wedding stress. Jasmine smoothed down the silk dress she was wearing. Another suggestion from Victoria. I miss how things were before, when it was just us figuring things out together. Maybe he's just trying to make everything perfect for you, Lisa suggested, adjusting the dress's train. Men can get weird about that stuff. But Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. That evening, she found an envelope from Bennett Industries' legal department in Marcus's office while looking for a stapler. Her heart raced as she held it, but she put it back without opening it. Trust, she reminded herself, was the foundation of their relationship. The weeks flew by in a blur of decisions and compromises. They finally settled on a medium-sized venue that satisfied both their desire for intimacy and Victoria's insistence on elegance. Marcus made sure everything was wheelchair accessible, not just for himself but for any guests who might need it. Yet through it all, Jasmine couldn't help but notice how Marcus seemed increasingly preoccupied. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read, part love, part worry, and something else she couldn't identify. "Are you happy?" she asked him one night as they looked over seating arrangements. Marcus took her hand and kissed it, his eyes serious. "I've never been happier," he said. "And after the rehearsal dinner, everything will make sense, I promise." Jasmine nodded, trying to ignore the nervous flutter in her stomach. Whatever secret Marcus was keeping, she hoped it wouldn't change the love they had built together. The private dining room of the Grand Atlanta Hotel sparkled with elegant decorations on the night of the rehearsal dinner. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the gathering of family and close friends. Jasmine sat beside Marcus at the main table, trying to calm her nerves. Something about Marcus's behavior tonight felt different. "Are you okay?" she whispered to him as the servers brought out the main course. "You've barely touched your food." Marcus squeezed her hand under the table. "Never better," he said, but his eyes kept darting to the entrance as if waiting for someone. Just as dessert was being served, a tall man in an expensive suit walked in, carrying a leather briefcase. Jasmine recognized him as Mr. Phillips, the head lawyer from Bennett Industries. Her heart started beating faster as Marcus signaled for everyone's attention. "Before we continue with dessert," Marcus said, his voice steady but serious, "there's something important I need to share with everyone, especially with you, Jasmine." The room fell silent. Victoria Bennett sat straighter in her chair, while Jasmine's mother reached for her hand across the table. "Jasmine," Marcus began, turning to face her fully, "when you first met me, I told you I was a software engineer. That wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either." Mr. Phillips opened his briefcase and began distributing folders to the main table. Jasmine's hands trembled as she opened hers. "I am a software engineer," Marcus continued, "but I'm also the majority shareholder and CEO of Bennett Technologies, a division of Bennett Industries. Our company develops software used by major corporations worldwide. Last year alone, we generated revenue of over $3 billion. Gasps filled the room. Jasmine stared at the documents in front of her, showing figures that made her head spin. All this time, Marcus hadn't just been wealthy, he was a billionaire. "I kept this from you because I needed to know that you loved me for who I am, not what I own," Marcus explained, his voice thick with emotion. "Every day since my accident, people have treated me differently, some with pity, others with ulterior motives. But not you, Jasmine. You saw past everything to who I really am." Mr. Phillips stepped forward, presenting another document. "This is a prenuptial agreement," Marcus said, "but not the kind you might expect." Jasmine's heart sank at those words, but Marcus quickly continued. "This agreement states that from the day we marry, half of everything I own becomes yours. Additionally, we will establish the Bennett Taylor Foundation for Disability Rights and Accessibility with an initial funding of $100 million. Tears rolled down Jasmine's cheeks as Marcus went on. "You never saw my disability as a limitation. You never saw my family's wealth as a goal. You just saw me, Marcus, the man who fell in love with his physical therapist and couldn't believe his luck when she loved him back." The room was completely silent now, all eyes on them. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a silk handkerchief, while Richard Bennett nodded approvingly. "I don't care about the money," Jasmine finally managed to say, her voice shaking. "I never did." "I know," Marcus smiled, taking her hand. "That's exactly why I want to share everything with you. Together, we can make a real difference in the lives of others facing similar challenges. We can help make the world more accessible, more understanding. He reached up to wipe away her tears. The foundation was your idea, really. Remember when you told me about your dream to help people who couldn't afford physical therapy? Now we can make that dream come true. Jasmine couldn't speak. She leaned down and hugged Marcus tightly, not caring that everyone was watching. When she finally found her voice again, she whispered, "I love you, Marcus Bennett, whether you're a billionaire or broke. Your heart is what made me fall in love with you." The room erupted in applause and cheers. As their families gathered around them with congratulations and hugs, Marcus pulled Jasmine close again. "No more secrets," he promised. "From now on, we face everything together as equals." And in that moment, surrounded by love and truth finally revealed, Jasmine knew that their story was just beginning. After Marcus's revelation at the rehearsal dinner, Jasmine needed some air. She found herself in the hotel's garden, sitting on a stone bench under the stars. Her mind was spinning with everything she had just learned. The man she loved, her simple software engineer, was actually a billionaire CEO. Her mother found her there, bringing a glass of water and her warm presence. "Baby, are you okay?" Marie asked, sitting beside her daughter. "I don't know, Mom," Jasmine admitted, turning the water glass in her hands. "I'm not upset about the money. All those months, he was keeping this huge secret. What else don't I know about him?" "Let me ask you something," Marie said gently. "In all the time you've known Marcus, has he ever lied about who he is as a person? His values, his heart, his love for you?" Jasmine thought about every moment they'd shared. She remembered Marcus insisting on cooking dinner, even when it was difficult from his wheelchair. She thought about how he volunteered at the hospital's rehabilitation center, encouraging other patients. She remembered how he always listened to her dreams with genuine interest, never dismissing them. "No," she finally answered. "The Marcus I fell in love with is real. The only thing that wasn't true was his bank account." Inside the hotel, Marcus was worried. He wheeled back and forth in the now empty dining room, with only his father for company. "Did I make a mistake?" he asked Richard. "Should I have told her sooner?" Richard Bennett placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You did what you thought was right. For the first time since your accident, you found someone who saw you for you. You wanted to protect that." Meanwhile, Victoria Bennett had followed Marie and Jasmine to the garden. She stood awkwardly for a moment before speaking. "Miss Taylor, Jasmine," she began, her usual polished tone softened. "I owe you an apology. When you first started dating Marcus, I thought you were after his money. I was so wrong. You loved him when you thought he had nothing but a regular job and a wheelchair." Jasmine looked up at her future mother-in-law, surprised by this admission. "The way you've loved my son," Victoria continued, her voice cracking slightly, "the way you've helped him believe in himself again, that's worth more than all our family's wealth." Inside, Marcus couldn't wait any longer. He made his way to the garden, his heart pounding. He found Jasmine sitting between their mothers, and the sight made him pause. These two women from such different worlds were united in their love for their children. "Jasmine," he called softly, "can we talk?" Both mothers quietly excused themselves, leaving the couple alone. Marcus wheeled closer but kept a small distance, respecting her space. "I'm sorry," they both said at the same time, then laughed softly. "You go first," Jasmine said. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything sooner," Marcus began. "I was afraid. Not of losing the money. I was afraid of losing you. Every other woman I met after my accident either pitied me or saw dollar signs. But you just saw me." Jasmine moved to kneel in front of his wheelchair, taking his hands in hers. "I'm sorry I walked out like that. It wasn't about the money, Marcus. I was just scared that I didn't know you as well as I thought I did." "Ask me anything," Marcus said earnestly. "No more secrets. I'm still the same man who loves sci-fi movies and makes terrible puns. I still can't cook rice without burning it. I'm still the man who falls more in love with you every day." Tears rolled down Jasmine's cheeks as she smiled. "Promise me one thing?" "Anything." "Promise me you'll always be that same Marcus, the one who fought so hard in therapy, who makes me laugh, who dreams big but stays humble. Money or no money, that's the man I want to marry." Marcus pulled her closer, touching his forehead to hers. "I promise. Everything else might change, but my love for you never will." Under the stars, in that quiet garden, they found their truth again. The foundation of their love wasn't built on wealth or status, it was built on understanding, acceptance, and real love. Tomorrow, they would face their wedding day stronger than ever, knowing that honesty had only made their bond deeper. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect weather, as if nature itself was celebrating their love. Jasmine stood in the bridal suite of the Grand Atlanta Hotel, looking at herself in the mirror. Her wedding dress was simple but elegant, just as she had wanted. Her mother adjusted the veil with tears in her eyes. "You look beautiful, baby," Mary said, smoothing down the dress one last time. To everyone's surprise, Victoria Bennett walked in, carrying a small blue box. "Something borrowed," Victoria said softly, opening the box to reveal a stunning pearl necklace. "My grandmother wore these at her wedding, and so did I. Now it's your turn, Jasmine." As Victoria fastened the necklace, their eyes met in the mirror. No more was there any doubt or suspicion in her future mother-in-law's eyes, only acceptance and love. Meanwhile, in another room, Marcus was getting ready with his father's help. His wedding suit was specially tailored to look perfect while he sat in his wheelchair, which had been decorated with subtle white ribbons. "Son," Richard said, adjusting Marcus's tie, "I've never been more proud of you than I am today. You found a love that sees beyond everything else." "I just hope I can make her as happy as she makes me," Marcus replied, his voice full of emotion. The ceremony space took everyone's breath away. Instead of the overly grand decoration Victoria had initially pushed for, they had created something magical in its simplicity. The aisle was wide enough for Marcus's wheelchair, lined with white rose petals. The guests, a perfect blend of both their worlds, filled the seats. When the music started playing, Marcus turned his wheelchair toward the entrance. His heart stopped when he saw Jasmine walking down the aisle on her brother Kevin's arm. She looked radiant, her smile brighter than any diamond. As she reached the altar, Jasmine didn't remain standing, but sat in a chair they had placed beside Marcus's wheelchair, making sure they were at the same eye level, equals in every way. "Dearly beloved," the minister began, "we are gathered here today not just to witness a wedding, but to celebrate a love that proves that true connection knows no barriers." Their vows were personal and heartfelt. Marcus went first, his voice strong and clear. "Jasmine, you came into my life when I thought I had lost everything. You showed me that what really matters isn't what I lost, but what I found: your love, your strength, your beautiful heart. I promise to love you, support your dreams, and remind you every day why you chose me." Jasmine wiped away tears as she spoke her vows. "Marcus, you taught me that love isn't about what a person can or cannot do. It's about who they choose to be. You choose to be kind, brave, and loving every single day. I promise to be your partner in all things, to face every challenge by your side, and to keep choosing you every day of our lives." After they exchanged rings, the minister smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Their first kiss as a married couple was met with cheers and applause. As they turned to face their guests, the minister announced, "I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Bennett." At the reception, Marcus surprised everyone by having his groomsmen help him out of his wheelchair and onto a special support that allowed him to share a standing first dance with Jasmine. They had practiced for weeks in secret, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room as they swayed to their favorite song. Later that evening, Marcus and Jasmine snuck away to a quiet balcony for a moment alone. The city lights sparkled below them like stars. "Happy?" Marcus asked, pulling her onto his lap in the wheelchair. "More than I ever dreamed possible," Jasmine replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "The beginning of everything," he agreed. "Tomorrow we launch the foundation. Next month we start building the new rehabilitation center. And every day we get to love each other more." As they sat there, holding each other close, they knew that their story was more than just a romance. It was proof that true love sees with the heart, that trust and honesty conquer all barriers, and that sometimes the biggest surprises in life lead to the greatest happiness. The end.